Helping to mitigate the supply chain attack vector, Trezor dropped some really good news today. Trezor now controls its silicone chip supply chain. According to a press release sent to Bitcoin Magazine, the company has achieved this by facilitating the manufacture of its own key component, the chip wrapper, for its flagship product, the Trezor Model T. The new chip wrapper improves device security and significantly shortens lead times for mass production. The twists and turns in demand for hardware wallets and the silicone supply chain disruption that we've seen over the past few years was a problem that we needed to solve. I just want to insert there, we're increasingly calling them signing devices because this is much more accurate to what is actually being done with the device. So hardware wallet just helps the general population understand, kind of bringing them closer to understanding how the device is used, but really it's a signing device. Satoshi Labs, the company behind Trezor, also announced last year the development of an open source chip for usage in Bitcoin hardware. Just recently, the company detailed that the initial testing on the first chip, the Trop IC01, had been completed, with expectations of continued testing through 2023. Okay, why did I pick this article? Something I found when I first got into this space was I found that every piece of FUD, right, which FUD stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt, for if there's any noobs that are listening to this. So anytime I heard any kind of FUD, I immediately became worried. Why did I become worried? I became worried because, number one, I didn't have a good enough grasp on the technology. Number two, I didn't build up enough conviction because I really didn't understand the philosophical points about Bitcoin. And number three, especially when it comes to the hardware wallets, I hadn't dived into the trade-offs between each hardware wallet, in brackets, signing device. Okay, so because every single one of them has trade-offs, and you need to pick what essentially what works for you, where your level of comfort in using the signing device, along with the level of security that you get, that you receive from using this device, if those two align and you feel comfortable using this, then I think you're going to have much more success in securing your Bitcoin. Now, going back to this point about the supply chain FUD. So look, this is something that I have heard from the beginning in Bitcoin. It's, so you got to buy your signing device. You got to buy your signing device directly from the manufacturer. I still believe that is true. I recommend to every single person, look, don't take a chance buying it off Amazon. I don't really care. Even if it says that it's from the manufacturer itself, you are taking a chance unless you buy it directly from the manufacturer. And I'm not just talking about Trezor. I'm talking about any signing device. So the other point that I wanted to make about this is this. The supply chain attack vector is incredibly complex because first of all, it is extremely expensive to produce chips. Okay, it's very expensive to produce chips. The technology that it goes into producing silicone wafers, it's just absolutely insane. I'm not going to go into detail. I have actually been to companies that manufacture silicone for companies such as Apple, for the iPhone in particular. So I am aware of, number one, how dangerous it is to work at those places, and number two, how expensive all of their machinery is and how expensive it is to actually create all of this silicone. Now, that being said, that raises the barrier to entry when we're talking about chip manufacturing. So the fact that Satoshi Labs is pushing in this direction, look, I have to give a hats off to them. I think it's really big. I think they are taking a risk, right? Because of the amount of resources that are involved in doing this. But the reward for this, I believe, at this point, I think are completely unknown in terms of how positive it can be. Trezor is also kind of showing everyone else how, hey, look, it's possible that we can do this. The other piece I wanted to mention was, you see, a lot of times in Bitcoin, people sit there and say, oh, well, there's centralization in Bitcoin. And indeed, there's always varying degrees of centralization. I'm not going to get into the nuance of all the different types of centralization. But when it comes to the supply chain is something that we've had a very difficult time saying, hey, look, you know what? This is decentralized. Like, well, it's kind of not. There's only a few ASIC miner manufacturers. There's only a few companies that produce chips. So when we see companies like Trezor doing this, when we see companies like NVIDIA talking about getting into mining, when we see companies like Intel talking about how they've already developed their first gen chip and are in testing, this tells me that if you're thinking that the supply chain is a definite point of contention where we will fail, I'm going to tell you that you should never bet against human ingenuity and resilience.